If you told us years ago that we'd be here making a video on how we became millionaires, we'd probably be freaking out.
When we sat down and looked at the last 10 years together, it became so clear to us of what really got us here. Which decisions were the most impactful? What are kind of those small shifts that actually had really interesting effects? And what were the biggest lessons we learned along the way to really land here as a millionaire couple?
Quick clarifier, because we love transparency, Mal hit $1 million net worth by the age of 29, and I'm close to hitting that on my own. When we talk about finances, we talk about them jointly, and together we almost have the $2 million investment portfolio.
So one of the earliest small shifts that we were talking about that really had the most impact was moving from this saving mindset to investing. Now, I will say there are so many posts about how I saved 100K, and I find them confusing. I don't think it's intentional. I think people mean well, but we use saving and investing interchangeably often. And for me, I thought everyone was saving their money and didn't understand that maybe included money they were investing. I really think it's important to see that step one mind shift is not about becoming a pro investor. It's just about being comfortable with saying, if I have my money sitting in this savings account, could it possibly be more impactful to learn how to set up an account with this thing that people are talking about? And would my money do a little bit more? Would it be a little more impactful for me? Before, I totally thought investing was complicated. I thought it was high risk. I pictured like 100 computer screens, on the phone screaming at people. But once I started learning more of the basics to move myself from that savings to investing, I realized first, you don't have to know everything out the gate, but it really is about thinking about investing that money and making it work for you. It encouraged me to start auto investing. I think I did 100 or 150 out the gate. And then I noticed I wasn't really noticing that money going away. I wasn't feeling the impact of it. And it let me creep it up to 200. And it really showed me that, hey, you can live the same life with this thing going towards the investments. And then at the end of the year, you feel so good about how much is there.
With our first business, we also grew our initial contacts and networks. And as cheesy as it sounds, truly your network is your net worth. The amount of opportunities and honestly just like help and resources that we've gotten because of our network is amazing. Like if we have an issue or if we have a question about something a lawyer might need to know or something like accounting, we know who to ask because we have quick contacts. And if it's something new like insurance, we would maybe ask our lawyer, hey, do you have any recommendations for an insurance broker, as an example? And whatever recommendation they're gonna give us, we already know they're trusted, they're vetted, and we don't lose much time doing that. And that's because we have a good contact.
Even though our first business didn't end up contributing that much to our investment portfolio when we look at it, starting a business was so impactful because what we realized was as an employee, the more you put into your job is not necessarily going to result in more income and often doesn't, unfortunately. When you start a business, the more you pour into that business, the more the potential for earning continues to grow, often exponentially. And it feels so much more rewarding because it feels like you can tie your energy to actual results versus a job where you are maybe pouring a lot in to get the same outcome.
Starting a business, you have to learn so much about money that you didn't even know about. And it might be intimidating, but honestly, you just go one thing at a time. Like when we look back at our journey, a lot of what we learned in business about money is just by doing. We've been doing this for 10 years now and we're still learning new things because there's so much to learn, but at the same time, we're still growing as entrepreneurs as well, right? Like doing our taxes, allocating funds to launches, setting up bank accounts, investment accounts, like you could read about these things, but when you actually start doing them, looking at the different accounts, that's when you'll do a lot of the learning.
This brings us to what I feel has been the most impactful decision we've made is funneling cash. I feel like out the gate, that sounds like something that's not legal, but let me explain. What I think of is if you can make high cash, whether that's in your career, in your business, whatever it might be, starting a side hustle to add on the side of your career, if you're in a very cash heavy business right now, is doing your best to funnel as much as possible of that to your investment. As entrepreneurs and people who like to pivot, it felt like it actually lowers our risk in our business, our career, whatever you want to call it, because you don't get stuck somewhere. If you are funneling that cash into investments, it means that whatever you've done to date is having an active positive impact on your future. So if you walk away from a job that you were making 200K, but every year you were investing a big chunk of that, that investment is made. You can walk away from that job and start the next thing, and you've still moved forward. So we always look at how can we keep moving the needle forward, even if the current thing fails, falls apart, we get bored, whatever it might be. We also love lifestyle creep. I could make a whole video on this. Everybody talks about how to avoid lifestyle creep, but most of us actually want our lives and our experiences to get better. I want to stay at fancier hotels. I want to go on more trips and travel more. It's something we haven't done. I want my lifestyle to creep up, but the trade-off is that can't be the only thing you're doing. I feel like that it's not even like a big sibling, but like with other creator friends, I'm always like, are you investing? Like, are you doing good? Because you want to make sure that you're still investing, because if you're just having the lifestyle creep and you feel like that money's always going to be coming in and you're not taking the time to learn how to invest, to put that money aside, things may explode. You could get your account hacked. Your business could fall apart. Maybe you have a business partner screw you over. You never know. So at least you're moving it forward. So we kind of look at like, if everything went back to zero, where are you? That's the idea of funneling cash, is can you be moving money to the investments? Also, we always hear this with compounding interest, the sooner the better for investments. At the beginning, we didn't even really understand that. Like, we understood the concept, but it wasn't until the last few years where we really saw the impact of all of our investments growing that made us go like, oh shoot, like people are right. Like the sooner you get in, the more that money grows, and then that more that growth can grow. I think especially if you're going to be like us and run a lean business that's high profit, it's a great opportunity to funnel those investments. But I always say, like, not from a scarcity perspective, more think of it as a safety net, is act like it won't last. Like, it's great. We're doing the positive affirmations, whatever it might be. Like, we don't want to be like always scared that it's going to go away, but I like to act like it won't last. So I want to make the most of it now. If I have high revenue now, I want to make sure that's going to future me. Josh put it as like, this too shall pass. The good will pass, the bad will pass. But if you can make sure you're moving towards your future you, I feel like I'm just hammering that home, because I'm like, invest your money, like funnel that cash, especially when the cash is coming in, because at some point it won't be coming in. We really learned that with our first business, where we almost zeroed out. We needed the last launches cash to really cover our bills, and we just felt so defeated, deflated. We felt back at zero and like we hadn't moved forward, and we knew how much work it had taken to get to that point. And so it just felt really horrible to be like, oh, we're kind of back at zero and we haven't moved forward that much.
So that got us into investing, but what really changed the game for us was gamifying it. So for us, gamifying looks like big goals and tracking it. In the beginning, we didn't really know much, so we just set goals arbitrarily with our business, but it really made us excited and still strive for more. The more we learned, the more we realized we wanted to attach it to an end goal. We heard a friend say that their goal was $1 million invested, 500K in the business, and 500K personally, and we thought that was pretty cool. So we made that our goal too. We got even closer to that goal last year, and we realized that we wanted to push that even more. You don't need that end goal in mind to start. You just need something that'll excite you, and that's what it comes down to, just gamifying it, unlocking those levels, and eventually you'll see the path more clearly. Some other ways to gamify that we do is creating a little checkbox, like physically doing something, maybe celebrating a win. Or for us, when we hit a big milestone of $1 million invested, we went to a fancy dinner just to celebrate on our own, because celebrate the small and big wins. Another thing you could do that I really enjoy is making a wallpaper, a phone wallpaper. I like seeing my goals every time I look at my phone. It makes it fun, it makes it exciting, and it reminds me of my goals and those next milestones.
The biggest thing we realized with tracking is that it leads to more check-ins, because you have to sit down regularly and update your numbers, and more check-ins leads to more touch points with your goals, which also leads to more conversations around those goals and your money, and more adapting. So because we're sitting down to look at those numbers, we're also having conversations around what are different choices we could make. Could we push a little bit faster or harder towards those? Do we need to make some changes? A recent example of what this looked like was when Josh was talking to me about 2.5 million invested at 40 and how we could get there. He said, actually, if we can invest 30K combined a year until then, we will naturally hit that. So he was feeling pretty good. He was like, yeah, we're on track. And then the way that my brain works, talking about goals that really excite us, I'm like, well, how much is that total? 240K? Okay, can I try to invest 240K in the next 2 years? Which is one of those bigger, more intense goals. But for me, that's what really excites me, is seeing that end of, okay, you're telling me I'm more or less financially free. If I can do that, can I pull it off sooner? And it's just good to have those conversations. We also kind of call this like the yellow car theory. You know, when people talk about if you're thinking of a yellow car, you'll see a yellow car more. You notice the things you're thinking about. So when you have more of those checkpoints, you're also going to notice that, whether it's subconsciously or consciously. And for us, we feel like we notice more opportunities, more investment opportunities, whatever it might be, because we are constantly thinking about those goals and checking in with how to get them. It makes us see more of those opportunities in front of us, which is a really cool takeaway from something as simple as tracking your numbers.
Honestly, Mal needs some really big and absurd goals to get her fired up, but for others it might feel unrealistic. So ultimately what it comes down to is knowing yourself. What really gets you excited and what gets you fired up? What you want to do is get to the root of it. It's something called the toddler test. What do toddlers do? They just keep asking why. But what that toddler test does, it gets you to the root of it, and one of three things will happen. You'll either realize that's exactly what you want, you'll realize it's what you want, but maybe not the way you're doing it. So maybe think of different ways to still get what you want, or three, it's actually not what you want at all. When we did this exercise, we knew we wanted to be financially free, but what does that really mean? So we asked ourselves why? And when we got to the bottom of it, we realized we just want to be present with our family and make work optional. We figured out that goal and we looked at what paths we can take to get there, and certain paths that we came across, we didn't really like. One of them was being employed but super frugal, like showering with your clothes on. Another option could be building a massive startup to sell. Hearing from Mal's experience and honestly knowing ourselves and our experiences, it wasn't really a world that we wanted to dive right into. We get bored pretty quick and pretty easily. Those weren't attractive, and what we narrowed it down to is to build lean businesses to then use those profits and invest into assets that will pay us passively.
Yeah, it's really about knowing yourself and leaning into those strengths. So for Josh, he loves like the numbers, he loves getting creative. So he'll often be the number side of our business, but then also he's kind of the creative mind behind the investments. Whereas I get excited by those big goals of going and getting the cash for the investments. He gets really creative with the mortgages or whatever it might be. And then my strengths are in the marketing and sales. So that allows us to build those businesses that rely more on marketing and sales to really take off, like our apparel business or, you know, social media realtor, all of those things where it's taking advantages of the strengths you have. So you really have to know yourself well. We mentioned in the start of the video that in hindsight, it's a lot easier to see the things that you did that have gotten you here. So one of those things is what we call the 6 solutions theory that I'm obsessed about talking about lately, where really the idea is that there's at least 6 solutions to any problem you're facing, especially the ones where you feel that there's only one answer. So if we go back to that first business, we talked about how we would set those arbitrary sales goals that really would just get us excited. But what's interesting with that is we would always land on one solution of how we could do it, and we would just make our first idea and then run with it. It still kind of worked, but as we continued to grow, we realized we always wanted to look at it through more lenses. So this was something we actually learned when we were investing in real estate. Someone had mentioned to us with any property purchase, they make sure they have 3 potential experts, 3 potential exits. So we kind of love that. We said, double it, give it to the next person. And can we come up with 6 solutions to any problem we're facing? And this is really about creative problem solving. Being a creative problem solver, coming up with the 6 solutions is going to change how you actually think as a person and as an investor and see those opportunities, create the opportunities from scratch. I think we've come up with some of our craziest ideas through this process, where Josh will maybe tell me like, oh, we're not going to be able to do this thing with the mortgage. And I'm like, well, what if we could do it another way? Like, come back to me when you have another answer. And it forces us to really think like, what are 6 different ways we could do it?
A good way to find a solution for a problem is to find themes. That's what we did early on. And we realized a lot of people we looked up to that had the life that we wanted to were in real estate. So we knew we had to get into real estate at some point, partially why I got my real estate license. Another thing we found was everyone was self-employed and or owned a business, right? I think it gave people the unlimited revenue potential and also the flexibility to live the life on their terms. Some big pillars to our lives is health, wealth, and happiness. And what we realized is the entrepreneurs that we really looked up to encapsulated all of these and looked at all of these as one whole.
Yeah, so looking for these themes, whether it's for your next idea or just paying attention to the themes is kind of a way to fast track your growth and your plan. And then as you go, you figure out which pieces are for you or not. But finding those themes, what are the common characteristics with the path that you think you want to take. Always learning has honestly just been such a big piece of it for us, and learning that what got us here won't get us there. So even if you're watching this video feeling like we already know so much more than you about business or finance, it's like we're also learning lessons from people right now where we realize, oh wow, we really don't know a lot about that next chapter.
You're never gonna stop learning. You're always gonna keep growing. And the biggest thing that I could tell you is keep an open mind. Take what you learn online or take some advice that you hear, but don't make it the one and only answer. Like figure out what will work for you and your goals. And honestly, ask the questions. Ask the questions. People are more than happy to share. Sometimes we ask people how much they make, how much they invest into this or that. And that's how we ended up on a $5.5 million villa in Mexico.
I feel like another big one for us has been just do it. Like, we started our first business. We did not have all of the answers. We barely had any. I always say, like, we kept all our receipts because we knew that was somewhat important. And then Josh had to spend like 3 months doing bookkeeping because we just started. We didn't know, but then we learned, right? When we decided to close our first business, Josh got his real estate license. We didn't have a real plan. It was just knowing we wanted to get closer to real estate. Even recently moving to Toronto, when we bought a cottage, we just knew that it would work out. And again, you're not going in blindly to things, but you're knowing that you're jumping into something, being okay with calculating the risk, figuring out the steps as you go. It's kind of crazy to think about that first lesson we mentioned. If we hadn't started by just moving our savings into an investment robo account, we wouldn't be here with all of these other stories to tell.
Yo, just do it. Just do it.
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
You're going to come in with the second line though?
Hope so.
If you want to grab a free copy of the investment tracker that we use to this day for our investment tracking, we've gone ahead and linked it in the description below.
Let us know which one you resonated with and one move you're going to make.
Okay.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.